Hello and welcome to the AI First Show. This is the show where we talk about all things AI, about tech, not just tech, but how to use it in your company, how to be productive with it, all of the industry gossip. We try to cover all of the bases here. My name is Stephen Barr. This is my co-host, Leonardo Gonzalez. How's it going? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, there's been a lot happening over the last couple of weeks, and some of the major things have been under the radar. So I'm going to try and bring them to the light here.
Yes, let's surface those things so that they show up as blips on your radar. All right, first news story. I'm sharing this here. This is GitLab Act 2. This one I think is semi-controversial. Well, controversial in the fact that they're introducing a layoff. So I'll get into the details. They're saying we're reevaluating our operational footprint. That's good corporate speak. To plan to reduce the number of countries by 30%, where we have small teams, flattening the organization, creating smaller, more empowered teams. So basically, they're going to reduce their headcount, which is always hard. So sorry for everyone affected. I think what's interesting in this article from the AI perspective is what they call the world we're building for. So they gave these three reasons. Number one, software will be built by machines, not people. Number two, the agentic era multiplies demand for software. I definitely agree with that. Consequential work belongs to engineers. I like this. Engineering has always been more than writing code. It's about design, decisions, solving the problems, reasoning through failures. So what do you think about this, Leonardo? What was the reaction that you saw to the GitLab announcement, and not just the layoffs, but also the why behind it?
Yeah, well, a few things. I saw, was picked up by Simon Wilson, by Latent Space, so there's a lot of attention here. I did a very brief scan and have a couple of instinctive reactions to it. One is always hesitant to take these layoff notices at face value. There's so much HR marketing spin given to these reduction in workforce events to try and alleviate worries by investors, by customers, by employees, and put it in a positive light. So I take that with a huge grain of salt.
Yeah, they're not just going to say we want more money, we think we can get it.
And especially the note about their revenue decreasing so much, it's like they're not looking so good. So for them to rebrand or reposition themselves as, look how AI first we are and look how innovative we are. It's like, well, you laid off a bunch of people and your revenue is, in the gutter. Take that, as a caveat to your interpretations. On the other hand, it is interesting that they are maybe aligning in an important direction, realizing that there are broken workflows and models around things like collaborative development that were designed for humans at human-paced contribution volumes and schedules, and things need to be rethought,
Yeah, I agree. I'm sharing this from the Simon Willison part. He highlighted this: the agentic era multiplies the demand for software. That I've seen in my own work. Actually, I'll share this in another article, but I just wrote an index for all of the AI tools that I've written over the last couple of months, because I've got like 30 or 40 different utilities that I use all the time and use them in different combinations. And I'm definitely seeing this Jevons paradox that, I'm using a lot of utilities now. I'm we're all kind of one person operations the way we do things, but at a team scale, right? You want to have a ton of CI, CD, you're committing at a much higher velocity. We're seeing GitHub fall over all the time. And part of what they're saying is like, we're seeing a lot more repositories. We're seeing a lot more workers. You see these repositories that are like 3 months old that have 20,000 commits.
Yeah, and that was my main other perspective on this, was the contrast with GitHub. And GitHub has had a couple of different takes on it recently. One being that they're uncoordinated. They don't have a CEO. They have like this decentralized reporting structure that doesn't report to anyone really. And they have to deal with an onslaught of AI slop PRs and the volume that creates. So some people are criticizing them for the downtime and the issues. And recently there was an issue with merge queues. But people are also recognizing that they're dealing with things on an incredible volume, and they're still providing immense value for free, for the most part. So you kind of have to hand it to them for doing what they're doing, but also realize maybe there's some limitations in what they're doing, and maybe a nimble outfit that tries to reinvent itself around AI-centric workflows is going to be able to disrupt the hegemony.
And I like GitLab's leadership, especially under Sid. He's been dealing with some interesting personal health stuff that he's been very open in documenting. So I think that's worth reading just from an engineering perspective on his own health. But yeah, I like GitLab's leadership. I hope they can do this. I remember with GitHub, I'm old enough to remember where their value add is you can get private repositories if you pay for them. If you want it free, they have to be public. And okay, let's go on to the next one. Let me share this here. We're going to move quickly here to I know you and I can both talk a lot, but we'll move quickly through the issues here. This one is OpenAI and OpenClaw. So this is a post from Pash Marapat. I've embarked on another sprint. My mission is to make OpenAI models feel magical in OpenClaw in the next few weeks. And then there's this. Diving in today, I noticed a bug. When you configure OpenClaw to use the Codex harness to OpenAI models, Auth is broken, and the system was silently falling back to the Pi harness. Nobody knew it was broken. 2 PRs later, the Codex harness actually works, and the difference is night and day.
Yeah. So I posted this not because of this fix itself, but just because of the overall concept of Codex harness in OpenClaw, which many people don't even know about still, or some people may have tried and not realize that they weren't actually using because of this issue. But I mostly wanted to think about and talk about the whole concept. You know that OpenAI hired Peter, the OpenClaw creator, and there's been a lot of speculation about what that means and what that implies in alignment. And there's been a pretty good efforts to maintain independence and a foundation and all this stuff. OpenAI has been very supportive of OpenClaw with like OAuth, subscription use, but also it's interesting to see Codex as an alternative harness, because from the beginning this was built and designed for Pi as the harness. I'm curious to see if there will be other harnesses integrated. Maybe we can submit some PRs, but Codex has this app server, which is a JSON RPC protocol, deep integration into the harness, well beyond a simple prompt-based like Claude-P kind of execute this thing. And that's what is used by the Symfony implementation, and that's why I used OpenHand's agent server equivalent, which is HTTP and webhook. Basically, it's a deep integration into the harness that gives you visibility, gives you control, allows you to manage permissions, execution, streaming, all kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of potential for advanced harness integration, a lot of potential for OpenAI-centric and OpenAI-specific integration into OpenClaw, obviously leveraging OpenAI models. There's obviously drawbacks to OpenAI-ifying OpenClaw, and who want to maintain kind of the independence and the diversification. But it's also good that if you want to use OpenAI models and a harness with OpenClaw, that there is increasingly a more sophisticated ecosystem for that.
Yeah, it is amazing. This world is evolving so quickly. And you look at Claude Code, which is you have to type into it, and you really can't hook into it. I mean, there are hooks, but you're not going to observe the internals of it. as well as you'd want to necessarily. And there's all these tools that have popped up around Claude Code that are literally like broadcasting keystrokes and using things like tmux to read the state of the actual window. And it kind of seems like like your engineering red flags are showing up saying we can get this in a much cleaner way if we actually engineer this, but we're moving so quickly. I spent a couple of hours over the weekend playing with a orchestrator that was doing exactly that. It was sending keystrokes to Claude Code. It was just so clumsy. So I'm glad to see some better, deeper integration and what we can get out of that. I wanted to share this kind of related post, which I thought was useful. It's one thing that we harp on this show. Like, it's not always the model, it's the context, it's the harness. And I thought there was we'll post a link into this, but I like this illustration here of what does the model get you versus what does the harness get you. And there's so much that the harness is doing. The model is like the engine of the car, right? You need the engine, but you also need to steer and drive and connect your Bluetooth and do all this stuff. All of that stuff that a good car does for you. That's what the harness is doing, not just the engine. Again, you need the engine, but it's just a piece of it.
So I wrote an article recently on this called "Give Your Brain Hands" for maybe less technically sophisticated people that are used to just using a chatbot and want to dive into the world of actually having an agent take actions with a simple conversational interface, but giving it the power to actually do things.
Absolutely. All right, I'll post the link into that. Give your agent hands. All right. Next post here, we are going on to, this is good. This is Atlassian. Okay, this starts with the Twitter post. This is Atlassian. Beginning in August, the company will seek to collect two types of data from its 300,000 global customers: metadata and in-app data from Jira, Confluence, and its other cloud products, which will then be fed into the company's models.
This is one of those under the radar things that I wanted to bring to the light. This seems egregious. This seems preposterous. I could understand maybe for a free plan, nobody's entitled to anything if they're getting something for free. You could say if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. But for paying customers, unless you are on their most expensive enterprise plan, to have your data be gobbled up for training, with no way to fully opt out, that seems terrible. People should know about this.
Yeah. And especially if you are, like, say if you're in a medical setting and you're using, I don't know, you're using, if you had assumed that you had a BAA with Atlassian, which assumed that your tickets could hold HIPAA data, why wouldn't you put a customer's MRN in there or something like that? A patient MRN or other identifying data. This is, I don't like this.
I think there should be an enormous backlash, but there isn't, I think, because people don't know about it. So I'm glad that I moved away from Jira a while back. I've been very happy with Linear. I'm exploring maybe using beads for some functionality instead of relying on an external third party. But this is not how you should do AI.
No, not. And if you look at the Hacker News reactions, here we go. This is insane. Every single one of those things is highly sensitive and confidential. How could you ever trust them after this? That information is priceless for shorting your company on the stock market. So yeah, exactly. What if you had some Jira ticket, which was like, say if you're, I don't know, building an airplane and you say the GE78 engine has a problem with, and it auto completes to, I don't know, something. I don't know engine engineering, but you would know that, and you say, wow, I knew there was something going on. And if GE was a customer of Jira and so was, I don't know, Rolls-Royce, they could kind of make it leak this proprietary information, and that's hard to anonymize.
Yeah.
Not a fan of this. So good that we're bringing this out to the light. I don't like the opt-in by default. Like, unless you opt out, unless you've checked one of the million emails you got and read it carefully.
And I didn't go fully down the rabbit hole, but prominently displayed there was you can't fully opt out. So like that in itself is pretty scary.
here is a little quote from one of the emails. Between today and May 19th, we'll gradually roll out these settings in Atlassian administration. We'll send out another email May 19th, so you have time to review and make adjustments before August 17th, 2026. So if you're using Jira, this is, you have to all of a sudden be careful that you have to opt out of this. This is not cool. And we're AI positive people. It's not like we're skeptics, but this is, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
Okay, next article. This is an interesting one. We were talking about Roo Code. Are you a user of Roo Code?
I played with it for a while. There was a time when I was experimenting with Qwen, and Roo Code is a Qwen fork that was even favored by many people because of their community model, like the way that they incorporated PRs was maybe more inclusive or dynamic, or it allowed for more rapid evolution. And so they kind of diverged. I'm not sure how they stayed in sync. I'm not intricately familiar with the backporting of features from one to the other, but it essentially was one of the main open source harnesses from the IDE days. Talking about the IDE days like they're behind us now, something from the past. But it was an alternative to Cursor and Windsurf that was open source, because Cursor and Windsurf are VS Code forks, and Anti-Gravity is a Windsurf fork. But these were not just forks of an open source VS Code, but they themselves were open source. So it allowed for rapid community momentum of developing interesting and innovative features that they even had things that I haven't seen in Cursor or Windsurf. They had some very interesting functionality. What is interesting to me is that the company behind them jumped ship. They closed the shop. I mean, they were immensely successful. They had 3 million downloads, and they said, speaking of the IDE days being behind us, that's exactly what they're saying. They're saying, yeah, we're playing the wrong game here. Like, this is not the future. So we're going all in on this Roomote thing. I don't know it's going to take off. I kind of doubt it, just because you need to have really good market penetration and branding and functionality. But who knows? Like, maybe they'll come out with an amazing product. But the fact that one of the most, if not the most successful open source IDE, Agentic open source IDE, closed the shop and said, hey, IDEs are the past, I think that's a huge signal for that there's a different future that is now becoming the present.
Yeah, that is a really good analysis, right? To say that, okay, we're done, and not just done, but done in a hurry, right? May 15th, we're archiving the repo. I clicked on their remote.dev page. Let's check this out. My initial read on this, and I'm not trying to be some armchair skeptic or some, I could all do it. This is not. I see a lot of people that say, okay, know your code base, uses your tools, gets a real dev environment. I've seen this pitch a lot of times.
Yeah. And how behind are they on cognition? It sounds like a Devin.
Yeah, let's see. Self-verifying. Roomote runs your actual app and doesn't call it that. Okay, great. Every test suite does this. Handles merge conflicts, inbound bugs, self-improves. That's table stakes. Connects to your repos, docs, tickets. Okay, in other words, it has access to the GHCLI. Slack integration. Yeah, so does everything has Slack integration. This is. I mean, I'm not rooting against them, but it's really hard to see how they can differentiate.
The point here isn't the value of their lifeboat. It's that they abandoned ship, and it's that IDEs and terminal UIs, I think, will be a thing of the past as we shift focus onto orchestrators. This is huge validation for me as I'm building out OpenSymphony and realizing this is where it's at right now, is orchestrate your agents, operate at the work level, and the actual implementation of the tasks should be somewhat transparent. You should be able to audit. You should be able to interact and intervene when necessary, but you shouldn't be stuck in one conversation at a time. across 20 tabs, you need a different UX for that.
Yep. I think we're all right now in if I did the HTOP on my computer, I have so many different CLIs open right now, and it's fun and I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to get your Open Symphony integrated into my workflow, also checking out Gas City. And I agree, this is going to be a very temporary era where we're doing all this stuff. Much like, I don't know, Docker Compose, right? There was a while where we were using Docker Compose files, and then most of it switched to Kubernetes, just as a matter of that was the right layer. Okay, so yeah, this will be interesting. We'll see if Roomote, what they build, how they differentiate themselves, and like I said, some orchestration tool is going to be what we're going to be using a year from now, and we're not going to be, I think, talking directly to a model through this very thin harness. It's going to be very quickly seen as quaint.
Yeah, and I think this will be integrated with our personal agents. We can talk to our OpenClaws or our Hermes or whatever, and have our natural conversational exchanges feed into our orchestrator.
Yeah, actually, speaking of Hermes, I just wanted to put that up for a second. I saw on, I'm using it now, and I saw on one of my news sources, I think it was Perplexity. Oh, here we go. I'll share this real quick. Yeah, Hermes agent overtakes OpenClaw as most used AI agent on OpenRouter. Surprised by this. So this is using OpenRouter's data to say Hermes is now burning through more tokens, or people's Hermes. I think it's cool. I've only been using it for a couple of days, but I was able to work around an OpenClaw issue. So it's kind of nice. Self-improving learning loop. Are you using it?
I haven't really had much motivation to. When it first came out, it seemed like there was some negative reception around the code quality, and I think that turned me off. But then I saw that it definitely has gained a lot of momentum. I'm not one to use popularity as a measure of quality. So things like having it overtake another thing in usage is like not really a criteria for me. Also, token usage is not the same as unique users.
As work.
Like maybe it's just token inefficient,
or maybe they have a few super heavy users.
Yeah. But I do want to, expand my horizons and play with it. There's been another one that I was excited when it came out called OpenJarvis that seemed to have a very quality team behind it, and it was focused on local first for local models and energy efficiency. I don't know how active they are. I just saw that their domain was down the other day, but I'm still seeing commits on their repos. So we'll see. I think ultimately, it's good to diversify. It's good to have options, and it's good to realize it's not about the thing itself, but about the concept of the thing, and the thing itself can be implemented in different ways. So I'm all for more options.
Well, the show planning agent in our Discord channel that just went live today between you and I and whoever else is watching, that is on Hermes. So yeah, that's hopefully we'll see how it plays out. Okay, next story is a post about Qwen 3.6. This is planning to open source Qwen 3.6, particularly medium size. There's this poll on what model size are you most anticipating. People are saying 27B is the winning vote. What is the impact of Qwen 27B?
This is a huge impact. So this eventually did get open sourced. It's kind of nice to save the post where they, solicited community feedback, and there was overwhelming support for that model. That model, by the way, is now available on Fireworks, not yet via serverless, but you can do a deployment, and it's dirt cheap. It's like $7 an hour. And I think I haven't measured it yet, but I think the token speed should be fairly good given the size of the model. What is amazing about this model is that the previous giant 397 billion parameter, I believe, Qwen 3.5 model, and this model are pretty much on par. So a local model, a model you can run on your MacBook, quantized, yeah, but it's like it's on par with previous state-of-the-art Qwen models. And unquantized, yeah, you can launch it on a 2 GPU machine that it only costs you $7 an hour to run. I think that's going to make it a lot more feasible to do high token workflows, like with OpenSymphony. That was one of the deterrents when I started using it, was saying, oh man, I'm using 1 billion tokens a day. And this is, even if 97% of them are cached, and that's like really cheap, that still adds up when you're talking about 1 billion tokens a day. So now, if I could, rent something for $7 an hour and run it for 10 hours a day, $70 a day, much better than $1,000 a day.
And that's a lot of throughput. Well, have a look at, there was a thread here running local models on an M4 with 24 gigs of memory. As they were discussing some of these models here. And Qwen 3.6, one user here said that Qwen 3.6 found a complex authentication bug that GPT 3.4 missed part of. There's another thread here called local AI needs to be the norm. And here someone's reporting that they're running a quantized Qwen and Gemma on, a gaming rig, so RTX 3080. In this part, it would be heavily quantized to run on 12 gigs of VRAM. But still, the fact that you can do it is awesome.
I think as we move into multi-model orchestration, where you can have 80% of your token pushing be by not a premium model, and then you have premium models do quality gates and code reviews and the initial planning and decomposition. I think that's going to change the economics drastically.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see that in an upcoming story later in the episode about how Uber blew through their Claude budget. I think we're going to both say, why were they doing that? It's like, they should take a lesson. You don't Uber Black everywhere, maybe on a date, but you don't Uber Black if you're just like by yourself going to the airport. All right. Anyway, here we go. Here's part of Simon Willison. He did a review of Qwen 3.6 27B, and this was April 22nd. So about like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And what did he say? Trying out the quantized version, running at Llama. And here is his famous Pelican riding a bicycle benchmark. Doesn't look bad at all. I mean, a lot of the other models have generated.
It doesn't look like a local model, yeah.
Yeah, this looks pretty good. Like if you were making a kid's game, like that looks cute. That looks kind of fun. Doesn't look unrealistic at all. Reading at 52 tokens a second, generating 25 a second. This is pretty cool.
I mean, that's pretty good speed, for a local model that size. Gemini, Google has released Gemma 4 recently, and it's really great that there's this friendly competition. I call it friendly, with local models. And Gemma is more efficient than Qwen, quite a bit more. But Qwen 3.6 is a bit superior. So if you can run Qwen 3.6, you might have to quantize it a bit. You might have a little bit slower throughput, but the quality that you're getting, it's just mind-blowing. Like a year ago, we wouldn't have thought, maybe people would have, but many people wouldn't have thought that now we would be having this level of a model running on a laptop.
That makes, yeah, absolutely. It's pretty neat to see, on the one hand, we're seeing the frontier get better and better and better, but then we get to use that gains locally. So that's really awesome.
And even if you're not using it locally, like I have a whole suite of development now on the roadmap for Open Symphony. But I think I can do the vast majority of that work using this model. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I mean, a lot of the work that I'm working on is with Kimi K2.6, which is, in terms of active parameters, what, about twice as big? So Kimi active parameters 32 billion. It's, a total is 1 trillion.
But it's active, a trillion parameter model, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be cool to use the regular Kimi at home. But like, I'm so happy with the performance, and I've been using it on Fireworks AI with the Kimi 2.6 Turbo that we have. And when I was doing some work with Claude, I forgot how slow it was. Yeah. Kimi K2.6 on Fireworks Turbo is. Let's go on to the next one. This is Perplexity. This is a tweet by Magnus Mueller saying, "I just realized that Perplexity is built on BrowserUse open source library." And I think that what they're saying, okay, Perplexity users kept reporting that it was randomly searching for capital of France and answering Paris for unrelated prompts. This exact prompt, what is the capital of France, is hard-coded in BrowserUse. We use it as a sanity check in Verify LLM connection. So this is interesting. This could be disabled, but Perplexity forgot. So they're kind of leaking the debug information of BrowserUse.
Yeah, so this is an interesting tell. I feel like the BrowserUse people have just gotten a raw deal. They're very innovative. I've seen, what they put out. BrowserUse, for those that don't know, was the original browser using agent before OpenAI came out with Operator. And this is AI native. This is not using Selenium or using, what's the one, I'm forgetting the name, that people would Playwright. This is actually using both DOM and visual inspection. And the open source BrowserUse was better than OpenAI's Operator. But it got zero attention because OpenAI was OpenAI, and at that point they had the mind share that Anthropic does now, where they put out a press release and the world goes nuts. But BrowserUse had this thing for free and open source, and people didn't even know about it, and they were first. So that was their first raw deal. The second raw deal was then Manus. I feel like people don't even talk about Manus anymore, but there was a period of time where Manus was AGI. People thought, this is amazing. This is the most powerful agent. It can automate my life. It can, leverage and superpower, the models. And it was kind of like a harness or an agent. It did stuff. It didn't just think. And one of the main things that was powerful about it was its ability to navigate the web on your behalf, to not just do research, but to do things like book a flight or, do things that actually required interacting with UI elements on a web page that you couldn't get by scraping it. And they used BrowserUse because it was an open source library. So they're like, okay, I'll just take that and I'll use it. They, didn't kind of credit them. They didn't really have them share in the success. And it happened once again now with Perplexity Computer being this new amazing thing that people are going crazy about. And computer use is this whole other area now that is starting to accelerate. And there's different harnesses that are using, and there's something with Claude, and there's something with Codex. There was a Qwen agent harness a while back. And so there's a lot of
OpenAI has a decent one too.
Yeah, the Codex. I mean, especially at least for Mac. It's not yet on Windows, but on Mac, I used it to automate going across 4 different browser profiles and searching through emails and downloading attachments and processing the data and updating a spreadsheet with that. It is really powerful and fast. So the fact that Perplexity is now doing that with BrowserUse is man, it's the 3rd time that they get a raw deal, and all they want is some credit. They just want people to mention them,
Yeah, I'm a big Perplexity fan. I'm a heavy Perplexity user. I use Perplexity Computer Use. It burns through a lot of credits, when you're using Perplexity computer use. And Perplexity credits are expensive for what you get.
Yeah.
Now, it is nice to be able to go to a site and say, here's a site that has no API, click through this interface, it has a bunch of ephemeral things that aren't in the DOM in a way that's predictable, but go ahead and click through it. And so it's frustrating that they wouldn't give BrowserUse the credit. I think that in this world, we're all using each other's stuff. That seems like a reasonable courtesy,
and I think
just, brand on top of it.
In addition to, trying to maintain clout for their brand, is maybe trying to protect some kind of a moat around the technology. And, we saw this, and I talked about it before with Cursor and the Kimi, well, when Kimi K 2.6 came out, they're like, oh man, the new Cursor model is going to be fire, because they use the Kimi model under the hood. And yeah, it's, for most people, the credit and the branding thing is like, something that, they might want to know what powers it. But for tinkers and hackers, I think it's good to know that there's alternatives, that, these giant companies that have these enormous budgets aren't necessarily building their own things from scratch. They're leveraging open source libraries that we could also leverage. So,
and then with 1,000% markup or more.
Oh yeah, at least, if not more.
That was the frustrating thing, right? Is for computer use, as an example, in my use case, it's something I needed to get done once, and so it wasn't worth digging into. Okay, what are all the different ways I could do this, and how's the way to do it the most economically? I had to do it once, it burned through a couple dollars, and it was a reasonable decision. But if I was to put this in some automation pipeline, sure, you could just, multiply the amount you're paying Perplexity, but it wouldn't even occur to you. It's like, okay, let's figure out another way to do this. And that's why we're trying to do this as a show, to show you, okay, as you scale up in your AI operations, you want to think through, am I using the most economical way to do this, right? Do I always need to be using Claude Opus, for example, right? Is there an underlying tool that's powering all this stuff that I can do for a 1,000th of the cost?
Yeah.
Actually, that's probably a good segue. Let's check out this post by Uber CTO, or this is Anissa Gardazi, and reviewing some news by the Uber CTO saying that they had already spent all of their Claude budget, and 2026 is not even halfway over yet, but they have spent all the budget. They said, I thought we need is blown away already. Now, this is interesting. Okay, so this talk here, engineering team forgot how to write boilerplate. I don't agree with this kind of take. I think, I don't doubt they forgot how to write boilerplate. It's just faster to do it with an LLM. But that being said, if you're writing getters and setters, don't use Claude Opus. That's probably how they ended up burning through their budget. I don't know, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, my take on it for the last year or so is that Anthropic offers the least cost-efficient, value per dollar on the market. And Claude Code is by far and away the most popular harness now, and kind of by default and by functionality, it's meant to be used with Anthropic's models. You can point it to other models, but that's part of what they want, is people conflate Claude Code, the harness, with Claude, the models, Opus and Sonnet. And there are other options. I've been trying to get people to switch over to Codex, and you're seeing this now. Like it's overtaken it in downloads. Like there's a tidal shift happening now with Codex. They've been doing a really good job of marketing and branding and social media presence. The model quality is amazing. GPT 5.5, a lot of people are preferring it to Opus 4.7. Obviously, I've been ahead of the curve in advocating for independent harnesses and independent models beyond that. And that's why I'm excited about Fireworks and open weight models. That's why I'm excited about open source harnesses like OpenHands and Open Code. And even non-open source ones that are independent, like Factory Droid. I feel like people need to step outside of their comfort zone and try alternatives and not just go with whatever's the most popular thing, because often that gets leveraged into, the way that Cursor did. It's like, oh, this is the de facto tool and enterprise use, so we're going to do that 1,000% markup. We're going to charge people a lot more than they would be paying a competitor that offers similar value just because we have the brand.
Yeah, I can only echo and repeat what you're saying. Like, I remember when you told me try out Open Code, and even just using Open Code with their Zen, which is like their own provider where you can try a bunch of different models. And with Open Code, it's great because you can see like a little price ticker as you're using your session. And that's exactly what Claude does not want to give you, because it really makes you feel like, wow, is this spend worth it at this point in time? And you can switch. At the time when I started, you can use Open Code with Claude, and you can see this conversation was like a $29 conversation at API rates. Well, you can have the same conversation with Kimi K2.4 at the time for like 80 cents. So it wouldn't, sure, at personal rates right now with all the, you could take the hit, but at scale, $29 times a million is very different than 80 cents times a million. And that's how you blow through so much budget. So, right, if you give all your engineers and unlimited Claude, right, and the Claude salespeople, that's exactly what they want to do. They want to onboard you onto the Claude platform and just, completely encapsulate you. Where you have to know other options, and you have to know, well, when can I use Haiku? When can I use Sonnet? When can I use Opus? Do not use Opus for everything. Learn how to use Open Code. Learn how to use Open Hands or Pi, or write your own. I think that there's a time to go deep and there's a time to go broad. And right now is one of those times where breadth is what's going to help you.
I also think that there's an interesting adoption curve thing happening, where previously people, companies wanted their staff to adopt AI, and they were happy to see people using AI. It's like, yes, please, welcome to the new century and the new decade, and this led to eventually this brief window of token maxing. That might become a Merriam-Webster word of the year, where people would, brag about how many billions of tokens they used, and this was applauded, and this was celebrated, and it was bragging rights. And companies wanted their employees to adopt AI and make heavy use of AI. That was like a proxy or an indicator for modernizing. Eventually, it gets to the point where the price needs to be justified by value, and you need to not just use as much AI as possible, but you need to start thinking about efficiency and trade-offs and ROI, and these are like bringing things down to earth again.
Yeah, this is Goodhart's law again, right? If people get bragging rights or burning through tokens, they're going to burn through tokens. I heard, I can't say how I know, but folks, various friends at Amazon are saying the same thing. There's a token leaderboard, but then they're like, hey, come on, don't burn through so many tokens. Yeah. Well, you told me to burn through tokens. There's a leaderboard. What do you want? And it's really hard to quantify, like, well, what's efficient token use? I mean, if you're the person who invents the next S3, that was an efficient use of tokens, but you don't know that until a ways after the fact. Okay, I guess takeaway for this section: if you are running a company and you run a token usage leaderboard, don't be surprised when people respond to the very incentive you just gave them. And zooming out, use something other than Claude Code Opus for everything. You can do the same thing. I mean, this is like complaining that you drove your Ferrari to get groceries and then your per mile costs are really high. Use the old Corolla. Okay, next one. Shipper. This is interesting. Today we pulled the plug on vibe coding. I just witnessed my Mac erase a $31 billion company in 184 seconds. This is beyond absurd. What's happening here?
So what's really hilarious is the response to this, not their announcement. this company shipped a lovable kind of, SaaS cloner where you can point it to a SaaS and say, make this.
Yeah, this makes sense. Oh yeah, here we go. Johnny Gigani. Let's share this one. Why would anyone ever sign up for the app you build in Shipper if they can just get Shipper to copy it? If anyone could sell their app for an exit, when anyone can wait for an app to get built, see what gains minimal traction, and copy it instantly. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thought-provoking. I mean, it's funny, but it's also thought-provoking. It's like, what world are we moving into? And now it's not going to be one that, Shipper is going to be the be-all and end-all. Like, how could they not have seen that perspective? There's obviously some different kinds of factors like branding, time to market, UX, all kinds of other things beyond the technical ability to do something that are going to determine success. And I think that that's increasingly going to be important for indie builders who will realize that if anybody can build anything, it's no longer sufficient to be able to ship a product. There's all kinds of other delivery components that are going to determine success. A very interesting world that we're moving into, for sure. And I think that this is thought-provoking enough that it's worth talking about.
This is I'm thinking about back in my business school days, the contract theory, the Jensen and Meckling theory, that a firm is just like the collection of contracts that it holds. And we're going to see, right, these much more fluid entities, right? Well, here's a brand that, maybe it's 3 days old, but it's got this good contract. In goes X, out goes Y. That's worth something. Might be worth nothing next week, but it has inherent value at that point in time. So I think
also, I mean, and we talked about this in another episode of people mentioning that building things has become commoditized, and it's increasingly important to have the wisdom and the intuition to know what to build. But I think there's also a huge gap between an MVP that replicates a functionality and technical maturity and operational robustness that would allow something to scale in production. And I think a lot of people don't yet appreciate that, and they will when they actually try and launch and scale something.
Yeah, it's not just the code. And I think we talked about this on one of our recent shorts, right? It's not just, okay, if you build the code, everything works itself out. You can have the greatest technical project in the world, and there's a lot more to it, right? That doesn't mean you have a great business, right? Betamax was great. HD DVD was great. That's just one piece of a much larger puzzle.
Yeah. Okay,
next tweet. This is actually kind of interesting. This is ClickUp. This is another one of the companies that I really like. I was a big ClickUp fan. We're going to talk about moats. I was a big ClickUp fan until I realized one day, for my personal usage, it was too heavy, and I made an app using Supabase that basically replaced my usage of ClickUp.
Wow, you killed it fast.
I killed it for me. Exactly. Now, ClickUp does a million things that I didn't need it to do. For me, a well-designed Postgres database and a CLI in front of it was what I really needed. Yeah. But this is cool. I like ClickUp CEO, Zeb, and he has a very signature style of these very loud Hawaiian shirts and whatever. But he's good. So this is good. And one of the great things about ClickUp is that you can get a real person on the phone quickly. And so this bug reports here, this is interesting. So basically what happened is someone went to clickup.com. They opened the page source. They found an API key. Let's see if we can pull up here it is. They found an API key here. Oh gosh. And then they ran one request on that, and then they got a bunch of customer data back from ClickUp. So they reported that, and then ClickUp paid out the bug bounty. They acknowledged it. Look at that. Their CEO responded. saying you have the right intent to your work, you're immediately responsive. This was a miss on us, taking responsibility. The most important thing you can do in either business or personal context, take accountability. He did that, and then paid out a bug bounty. So from the AI perspective, where does this fit in? Was this a vibe-coded mistake, or what happened?
I'm not sure about the root cause analysis, but what really stood out to me in this response and in this event is because I follow InfoSec communities, and this person in particular has been fairly active in reporting a few things. He has gotten some pushback for some early disclosure on one particular vulnerability where he tried to contact someone, didn't kind of let enough time pass before kind of publicly announcing. But that's kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about is this kind of public discourse on vulnerabilities and the fact that X has become important for that. There are bug bounty programs and they are deficient. Part of it is because of AI slop, volume, overloading, and so it creates a triage burden. It sometimes needs to be escalated publicly. Part of it is because maybe improper training of the people that are managing those programs. But part of it is companies messing up. And they have to kind of own up to that, and they have to revisit the process. So this was an excellent example of that, where maybe initially they didn't triage the issue correctly, they didn't respond, but then they course corrected and they owned up to it. This is in stark contrast to Lovable. So that was kind of the other thing that I tied in together with this, is Lovable had a severe issue that public projects were fully public. Not just that the site that you created was public, your conversation history was public. If you put in API keys in there, those were public. And their initial response to that was, oh, this is a documentation issue. People misunderstood what public meant, but we haven't been breached. This isn't a bug. Then it turned out that it was a bug, where they had changed it at one point, and then they oopsed some configuration change that reverted that change. And so it was undesirable behavior that was happening. And they had to do several rounds of getting roasted publicly to finally have their CEO come out and mea culpa, say, gee, we messed up, and we messed up in our response to how we messed up, and we need to do better.
So it turns out that trying to gaslight your users into saying, no, you read the documentation wrong. That doesn't work. And even if you are technically correct and say, okay, by some legalistic interpretation of the law, you could see how you could argue that doesn't work. That's bullshit, right? You just, come on, we all know what you meant.
and part of this is there's this desire to PR spin everything. And so I feel like it's kind of a knee-jerk reaction for companies to say, no, this isn't serious. We're on it. Don't worry. Don't panic. Everything's good. Mm-hmm. And I think that people are starting to realize it's better to be on the other side of that, of an abundance of caution, an abundance of taking responsibility and being publicly accountable. And that ends up aging better than the spin.
Okay, Unity AI. Yeah. This is a good one. Trained on Unity, designed for game development. So Unity is an AI framework. Lets you, if you're making a first-person shooter or any kind of other 3D game, this is the graphics toolbox, playground, physics engine that you could play in and have your game be based in. So what does Unity AI do, and why are we talking about it?
So I'm not.
Should we watch it?
I think in the interest of time, probably not. We need to get going soon. But I'm not a game developer, but I have a lot of friends in the game industry, and it's a very interesting space. What's interesting about this is the space and the way that it's positioned. It's like a paid MCP server that gives your agent very in-depth knowledge of the game engine and how to program it. So it's interesting how they're adopting that, where, yeah, you have to pay a monthly fee, but it's, you know, very low fee. Like if you are a professional game developer, like this is one of your tools. And it's going to greatly accelerate your progress in developing with that agent. So this is kind of like when people were first realizing they could hook up Claude Code to some kind of 3D rendering, I forget which one, engine. And it was amazing to see like your agent be able to like do things in 3D. So I feel like this is very exciting, where you can essentially have your AI agent be a game developer. I think this is going to do two things. It's going to transform the game development industry, which obviously all software development industries need to adopt AI, but it's going to do it in a ostensibly much more grounded and deeply integrated way, beyond what would be possible just, you know, pointing your harness at the documentation or something. And the other is it lowers the barrier to entry for people to dabble. Like, yeah, I don't have to pay the hundreds of dollars a month pro subscription. I could use the free subscription and maybe try out a 14-day free trial or $10 a month if I want to, you know, be a hobbyist and, you know, do something that I wouldn't have been able to do previously because I'm not a professional Unity programmer.
I'm really looking forward to trying this out, and especially I've got two teenage kids who, you know, we're talking about tech and AI, and this seems like a great way because, like, I don't know anything about this. I'm not a gamer. I don't even know what questions to ask, but I can appreciate the complexity. Like when I'm doing my own programming, I know enough about programming that I can feel like I can have a back and forth with an AI agent. But with gaming, I don't know, do your thing. And to have like all of this accumulated knowledge, right, about physics, about collisions, and about timing, and all of this stuff. Like, I guess what's that law? Like, I know enough to know that I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to
Dunning-Kruger. Yeah.
Yes, I am in the trough of that graph. I do not, but I'm smart enough to know that I don't know anything about gaming. And so having this store of accumulated knowledge and be able to get it for $10 a month, that seems like it's worth a shot. The other model that I can think about that's similar is Fusion 360. So that's put out by SolidWorks, who makes that, and AutoCAD. They have a version of that that's like free to use if you're a hobbyist. I've got these 3D printers back there, and I use Fusion 360. I know that tool and its big brother, AutoCAD, like you could design, you know, sophisticated machinery and engines and all that stuff. And I'm using it to, you know, make plastic little things. But I appreciate the size of what's behind it, and I think this is a similar argument to be made for Unity. This is cool. Thanks for bringing this up to the attention. Okay, we've got, I think, 3 more. We're going to burn through these really fast. I know you have to go. Okay. Google Meet support to OpenClaw announced by Peter Steinberger. Now multi is eager to join every meeting. This is interesting. So the idea is you have this agent that automatically joins your meetings, takes notes. Maybe you can ask it to do a tool like, hey, multi, go generate this report so that we can talk about it in a minute here. That seems, on the one hand, like a good idea. What are your thoughts on this?
I kind of want to try it out. It's interesting. I wonder what kind of modalities it really handles. I mean, probably it's going to be some kind of automatic speech recognition, primarily, like transcribe, maybe speaker diarization, which is who said what. Maybe you can hook up text-to-speech, have it talk back to you. If it can actually do like image analysis or video analysis, that would be mind-blowing. I don't think that's part of the initial, rollout, but there's been some interesting developments in Gemini Live and also OpenAI real-time. These are models that do real-time voice-to-voice, or with Gemini, like video also. So it'd be interesting to see if these things could be plugged in to your agent and join meetings. I feel like there's very easy low-hanging fruit here for some tinkerers to do something innovative. Not have to rely on fireflies or a granola. Do it yourself and do it much more powerfully in a way that can be configured. So I think that this, lit up a light bulb for me.
Well, what's going to be interesting is how there's other people in this space, like Read AI, and in our internal meetings, you join a meeting and there's like 8 agents that join because we're all playing with this stuff all the time. So there's a lot of people are experimenting with this. The one caution I have for people, like I have this big DAC on my desk that takes my microphone input, puts it into my computer, and I'm in the habit of, if I'm not in a meeting, to physically mute the microphone. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell a quick story. I had a colleague who, we'd all left the Google meeting except for Read.ai, and I guess he forgot to close his tab and then took a very personal phone call. And then at some point when
the transcription notes went out to everyone.
Yeah. And I felt really, really bad about this because, you see the summary and it says, we discussed such and such, such and such, and then a litany of personal issues.
Wow.
And I think that I didn't want to cause I called our representative, and basically it would have ended up like making this Streisand effect where the more I tried to say, let's get this deleted, the more people would have had to know about it in the first place. And so I just let it die. And I made the same mistake. I made the same mistake a couple of weeks ago, but luckily I got into our Google Docs before anyone noticed. But yeah, I had a phone call that came in just as the meeting ended, forgot to close the tab, and there was some weird half of a conversation that got summarized. Lucky you didn't catch it. So have a physical disconnect for your microphone, and even something like a big red light that says, hey, you've got a hot mic in here, because we are going to have more and more things that are listening.
And this is, like, I don't know, there's maybe even some privacy laws. Maybe there aren't. I know there are with phone calls. Like, I think you can't record a phone call without letting the other party know that they're being recorded. But I don't know if the same thing exists for online meetings. I know that Zoom lets you know if this meeting is being recorded. You have to click on an OK button. I feel like it's going to be the new default. Like, we have to assume that everything is recorded, and we have to operate accordingly. We need to upgrade our OPSEC.
Exactly.
Security.
Have a big red light on your microphone that says when it's on, when it's off. Train yourself to use that. I mean, I had a call with my accountant, coming up to tax season, and whenever he calls, there's like a really quick digital voice that says, AI assistant is listening to this call. And so it's, I guess you are consenting by staying on the call, and I guess with Google Meet, you can see all the attendees. So there's definitely some uncharted legal territory in here that we're all going to have to deal with. Okay, next one, token speed. Tokens at the speed of light. Token speed is a speed of light LLM inference engine designed for agentic. So what do they mean by speed of light? Because I mean, anything inside a computer.
Interesting because it's a new inference engine. You don't have a new inference engine every day. You've got your VLLMs, you've got your SGLang. Hopefully you're not running Ollama. It's the most popular and the worst, kind of local inference engine. You've got LM Studio, and here's a new player that apparently blows all these things out of the water very early. But it could be something that is both useful for people who want to run local models, as well as for large inference providers. I talked to Fireworks about this. I said, hey, did you guys see this? They're like, yeah, we're looking at it. Like, we have our own proprietary stocks, but we're going to see, if they're doing some of the stuff we're doing. And so this is a major development, but it's still unfolding. I think it's worth keeping an eye on.
That is pretty cool. Yeah. So the inference engine is the thing that actually takes the model weights and the question, does all the math, the forward, the back propagation, all the stuff that an LLM architecture actually does to come out with tokens on the other side of it. So yeah, let's keep an eye on this, and maybe we'll have like a flashback episode a year from now saying, remember when token speed came out and everything got faster? So that would be cool. Okay, next one. This is the prompt API on Google
Good
Chrome.
thing to end on that, and it's a little sister story. I need to harp on Google a little bit. So Google is great. I love Google. They used to have a motto, which was "Don't be evil." They later got rid of that motto, and people have been scared about Google's lack of not evilness. They're starting to do some shady things, which is really disappointing because I love Google, like I really do. And so when they do some shady things, it really sucks. Yeah, one of these is the prompt API. So it's great that they're kind of innovating and exploring use of large language models integrated into the browser for local use. So using local models, all of these things are great. And this is what eventually made me, ditch Comet in the first place, was realizing, hey, AI is coming to Chrome. There's things that I love about Chrome that I want to go back to Chrome, and I can make use of AI. Also, just the novelty wore off of having your AI pane, and realizing that you can actually drive your browser through a local model and have kind of this direct integration was really exciting. And this thing has been in the works for a while, but the way that they're rolling it out, and this is now being rolled out, is like unbeknownst to users. They're downloading 4 gigabytes of model locally, and there's some negative reception to that, and especially by like steering committees and open standard committees and Mozilla and other people that are saying this is being done in a very unilateral, proprietary way instead of looking at consensus in the industry. Informed consent on the part of users. So it's a little bit, not great.
I saw this one. This is funny. First, the tabs came for the RAM, and I didn't protest. Then they came for the chip, and this is a paraphrasing of a quote about standing up for oppression because eventually it'll come to you. And this is then they came for the dark silicon, then they came for the hard disk space. So getting a 4 gigabyte model on everything. And then what you showed here, this is Mozilla's response. Prompt API, closed. They're not going to do it. And there's a discussion in here, encourages model-specific behavior, increases interop risk. So this is interesting. I like this response. Needs much more baking in user land before web APIs are shipped. I'm a Comet user. I'm a paid Perplexity user. So I'm a paying Perplexity user. I find it convenient, but I'm not married to it. It'll be if there's a way to do it locally.
To finish this out, another shady thing that Google is doing is regarding CAPTCHAs. A lot of people see CAPTCHAs and reCAPTCHAs, and Google bought them a while ago. And people wonder, like, why would Google buy a CAPTCHA thing? It's like, well, they're in charge of a lot of infrastructure and things, and then there's things that Google does that are essentially public benefit initiatives. So yeah, stopping spam and stopping bots is great. But what's happening here now is that people can de-Googleify their Android phones, right? So they can remove Google Play services and have their Android is an open source mobile OS, and they can run a privacy-first Android phone that doesn't dial home to Google. That seems important. And now Google has rolled out this update, is rolling out this update to reCAPTCHA that forces you to scan a QR code and use Google Play services. So if you have one of these privacy phones that has been de-Googleified, you're going to be locked out. And since reCAPTCHA is rolled out to, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of sites or something, like these people are going to be locked out of huge parts of the internet. And so this is wielding their power in an interesting way that is also very not cool.
Look at that. It must run Google Play services version 25.41.30 or higher to complete the reCAPTCHA mobile verification flow. Cloud defense system. Oh, it's always under the banner of fraud, fighting fraud. Yeah. Google's got to know what a fire hydrant is by now.
Part of it is ridiculous where, you've got these browser use agents. You're like, oh, let me solve the CAPTCHA for you,
I mean, it's funny. I ask Perplexity comment to like fill out flows for me, and it's prompted so that if I have to agree to terms and conditions, it will stop and say, hey, look, it's asking me, do you actually agree or not? And then it'll keep going. So we're going to have to, at some point, it's just going to, I could tell it preemptively, agree to something unless it's stupid.
And I think that this is also speaking to the tension between fraud prevention and privacy, which you wouldn't think would be at odds with each other, but increasingly they are shown to be. I forget who it was. One major company recently was saying, hey, we need to verify that there was a person behind the action. And one really neat way to do that would be a Touch ID. So let's just collect biometric data on everybody in order to make sure that they're a human. So it's like, of course, there's, a big backlash to that. Like I have to show my face or give you my fingerprint for, some benign thing. It's a slippery slope. And I think this is not the last we're going to hear of that tension between fraud abuse or human verification and privacy, because it's really hard to decouple knowing if somebody is a person from knowing who that person is.
Yeah, it's and we're gonna there's gonna be a lot of tension behind that, and also intent based. So is more to the point of person or agent, or is this agent acting on behalf of a person in an authorized manner, or is this just an autonomous bot? Or as the great Cosmo Kramer said, why does Radio Shack ask for your phone number when you buy batteries? We're always going to be dealing with this issue, right? You're going to see people want to eliminate all forms of payment except all forms of cash payments. I think that's another show. See, we can dive deeper into that. All right. Well, thank you, Leonardo. It's a pleasure doing this episode with you. We will be on there next time. Have a look on our Substack, on our LinkedIn, on YouTube. All right, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Sounds good.